I'm Jeremy Chase, day 389 of reading, trading him out in the Order of the Phoenix. Let's get started. We're currently on page 235. The Great Hall. The ceiling had turned an even murkier gray during the morning. Rain was lashing the high windows. That was really unfair, said Hermione consolingly, sitting down next to Harry and helping herself to shepherd's pie. Your potion wasn't nearly as bad as Goyle's. When he put it in his flagon, the whole thing shattered and set his robes on fire. Yeah, well, said Harry, glowering at his plate. Since when has Snape ever been fair to me? Neither of the others answered. All three of them knew that Snape and Harry's mutual enmity had been absolute from the moment Harry had stepped foot in Hogwarts. I did think he might be a bit better this year, said Hermione in a disappointed voice. I mean, you know, she looked carefully around. There were half a dozen empty seats on either side of them, and nobody was passing the table. Now he's in the Order and everything. Poisonous toadstools don't change their spots, said Ron sagely. Anyway, I've always thought Dumbledore was cracked trusting Snape. Where's the evidence he ever really stopped working for you-know-who? I think Dumbledore's probably got plenty of evidence, even if he doesn't share it with you, Ron, snapped Hermione. Oh, shut up, the pair of you, said Harry heavily, as Ron opened his mouth to argue back. Hermione and Ron both froze, looking angry and offended. Can't you give it a rest? He said. You're always having a go at each other. It's driving me mad. And abandoning his shepherd's pie, he swung his school bag over his shoulder and left them sitting there. He walked up the marble staircase 2 steps at a time, past the many students hurrying toward lunch. The anger that just flared so unexpectedly still blazed inside him. The vision of Ron and Hermione's shocked faces afforded him a sense of deep satisfaction. Serves them right, he thought. Why can't they give it a rest? Bickering all the time. It's enough to drive anyone up the wall. He passed a large picture of Sir Cadogan the Knight on a landing. Sir Cadogan drew his sword and brandished it furiously at Harry, who ignored him. Come back, you scurvy dog! Stand fast and fight! Yelled Sir Cadogan in a muffled voice from behind his visor. But Harry merely walked on, and when Sir Cadogan attempted to follow him by running into a neighboring picture, he was rebuffed by its inhabitant, a large and angry-looking wolfhound. Harry spent the rest of the lunch hour sitting alone underneath the trapdoor at the top of the North Tower, and consequently it was the first to ascend the silver ladder that led to Sybil Trelawney's classroom when the bell rang. Divination was Harry's least favorite class after potions, which was due mainly to Professor Trelawney's habit of predicting his premature death every few lessons. A thin woman, heavily draped in shawls and glittering with string beads. She always reminded Harry of some kind of insect, with her glasses hugely magnifying her eyes. She was busy putting copies of battered leather-bound books on each of the spindly little tables with which her room was littered when Harry entered the room. But so dim was the light cast by the lamps covered by scarves and the low-burning, sickly scent of fire that she appeared not to notice him as he took a seat in the shadows. The rest of the class arrived over the next 5 minutes. Ron emerged from the trapdoor, looking around carefully, spotted Harry, and made directly for him, or as directly as he could while having to wend his way between tables, chairs, and overstuffed puffs. Hermione and me have stopped arguing, he said, sitting down beside Harry. Good, grunted Harry. But Hermione says she thinks it would be nice if you stopped taking out your temper on us, said Ron. I'm just passing on the message, said Ron, talking over him. But I reckon she's right. It's not our fault how Seamus and Snape treat you. I never said it "Good day," said Professor Trelawney in her usual misty, dreamy voice, and Harry broke off, feeling both annoyed and slightly ashamed of himself again. "And welcome back to divination. I have, of course, been following your fortunes most carefully over the holidays, and am delighted to see that all of you have returned to Hogwarts safely, as of course I knew you would. You will find on your tables before you the copies of the Dream Oracle by Inigo Imago. Dream interpretation is a most important means of divining the future, and one that may very probably to be tested in your OWL. Not, of course, that I believe examination passes or failures are of the remotest importance when it comes to the sacred art of divination. If you have the seeing eye, certificates and grades matter very little. However, the headmaster likes you to sit the examination, so..." Her voice trailed away delicately, leaving them all in no doubt that Professor Trelawney considered her subject above such sordid matters as examinations. Turn, please, to the introduction and read what Imago has to say on the matter of dream interpretation. Then, divide into pairs, use the dream oracle to interpret each other's most recent dreams. Carry on. The one good thing to be said for this lesson was that it was not a double period. By the time they had all finished reading the introduction, they had barely 10 minutes left for dream interpretation. At the table next to Harry and Ron, Dean had paired up with Neville, who immediately embarked on a long, winding explanation of a nightmare involving a pair of giant scissors wearing his grandmother's best hat. Harry and Ron barely looked at each other glumly. "I never remember my dreams," said Ron. "You say one." "You must remember one of them," said Harry impatiently. He was not going to share his dreams with anyone. He knew perfectly well what his regular nightmare about a graveyard meant. He did not need Ron or Professor Trelawney or the stupid dream oracle to tell him that. "Well, I had one that I was playing Quidditch the other night," said Ron, screwing up his face in an effort to remember. "What do you reckon that means?" "Probably that you're going to be eaten by a giant marshmallow or something," said Harry, turning the pages of the Dream Oracle without interest. It was very dull work looking up bits of dreams in the Oracle, and Harry was not cheered up when Professor Trelawney set them the task of keeping a dream diary for a month as homework. When the bell went, he and Ron led the way back down the ladder, Ron grumbling loudly. "Do you realize how much homework we've got already? Ben sent us a 1.5-foot long essay on giant wars. Snape wants a foot on the use of moonstones, and now we've got a month's dream diary from Trelawney. Fred and George weren't wrong about OWL year, were they? That Umbridge woman had better not give us any." When they entered the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom, they found Professor Umbridge already seated at the teacher's desk wearing the fluffy pink cardigan of the night before and the black velvet bow on top of her head. Harry was again reminded forcibly of a large fly perched unwisely on top of an even larger toad. The class was quiet as it entered the room, as Professor Umbridge was as yet an unknown quantity, and no one knew how strict a disciplinarian she was likely to be. "Well, good afternoon," she said when finally the whole class had sat down. A few people mumbled "good afternoon" in reply. "Tut, tut," said Professor Umbridge. "That won't do now, will it? I should like you, please, to reply, 'Good afternoon, Professor Umbridge.' One more time, please. 'Good afternoon, class.'" "Good afternoon, Professor Umbridge," they chanted back at her. "There now," said Professor Umbridge sweetly. "That wasn't too difficult, was it? Wands away and quills out, please." Many of the class exchanged gloomy looks. The order "wands away" had never yet been followed by a lesson they had found interesting. Harry shoved his wand back inside his bag and pulled out quill, ink, and parchment. Professor Umbridge opened her handbag, extracted her own wand, which was an unusually short one, and tapped the blackboard sharply with it. Words appeared on the board at once: Defense Against the Dark Arts, and Return to Basic Principles. "Well, now, your teaching in this subject has been rather disrupted and fragmented, hasn't it?" stated Professor Umbridge, turning to face the class with her hands clasped neatly in front of her. The constant changing of teachers, many of whom do not seem to have followed any ministry-approved curriculum has unfortunately resulted in you being far below the standard we would expect to see in your OWL year. You'll be pleased to know, however, that these problems are not to be rectified. We will be following a carefully structured theory-centered, ministry-approved course of defensive masters this year. Copy down the following, please. Wrap the blackboard again. The first measure vanished and